One of my big brothers has always been really big into board games, and when we were little kids he got this huge bunch of old board games and the like from one of our cousins, and amongst those board games was the D&D Red Box 2nd edition, which is amongst the very few role-playing games that have ever been translated into Finnish. And my brothers, I have two big brothers, and they would play the Red Box D&D game by themselves, and I would see them playing it. I would always beg, like, I want to play with you guys, but I was like 10 years old at the time, so, you know, I was poor company to, you know, older kids like my brothers and that sort of thing, and I begged and I begged, and they just allowed me one time, and in that one time they basically just killed me off so they would have an excuse that, well, we allowed you to play and you sucked. So basically, you know, they just drew on a graph paper this this corridor and said that you're here, you're standing here, and you know, you see the shadow of an orc behind this corner here. What do? Well, I go to the basically to the corner to attack him. Well, you just walk there and he just hits you with an axe and you die. Game over. And that was that. So, you know, ever since then I always wanted to play the game, but I never could wrap my head around the book itself. I never could wrap my tiny 10-year-old mind around the character sheets and the die rolls and all this different stuff. But I did always remember that graph paper stuff where they would draw like corridors and characters and, you know, treasure chests and monsters and all that on graph paper, where they would kind of like draw out the map as the players went along. And when I was in grade school at that age, I would play this as this kind of game with my friends. You know, when we would have like recess, I would just, we didn't go outside, we would just pull these huge papers, and I would just like draw the outlines of a corridor or something, and draw like a character like something that you would see in a Zelda game or something from the, you know, above angle, and just say to one of my friends that, okay, you're this character, you know, what do? You're in this corridor, and they would just, you know, tell me they're walking forward, and I would describe what they're seeing as I would draw the map on as they would go further, and, you know, I would draw all the treasure chests they would find. When they would see enemies, I would draw the enemies there, and every time they did something I would just erase what I had drawn before and just draw the characters into a further stage or something. They were so simple, the characters, you know, you could do it really quickly, and that sort of thing. We also played games like Age of Empires or Worms and stuff like that on paper. We would just draw it, and, you know, there's gold. What do? I mine for the gold. Okay, I'll erase your character and then draw him next to the gold mines there to mine gold, and I'll draw you this statistic that now you have 2 dots more in gold and that sort of stuff. So basically I was kinda role-playing before I even had opened a role-playing book. Now, when I was 13 and I was in junior high, one of my friends had D&D 3rd edition, and he used to go to this role-playing camp. They had like this weekend long camps in this kind of local camping area where they would just play role-playing games all day, all night, and that sort of thing. And he talked me into it, and I went there and we played some D&D, we played some Vampire the Masquerade, Vampire Dark Ages, and all these type of games, and in there I kind of got the idea of how the die rolls are done, how a character sheet is filled, what sort of information I can find in the books and that sort of thing. Basically, I found that role-playing games were this kind of where you not only just tell what you do, but you also act as the character, you know. And we would play these one-shot games. All the games would be like one session, and then we would go on to new different things, and we would revisit games and such. But, you know, those characters usually, our player characters had the longevity of one session, you know, something like 5 hours or 6 hours or something, because we were spending the whole day and night in role-playing. Now, you know, that's how I got the framework of how role-playing is done, and ever since that, I would always, like, when me and my friends would have, like, game nights and stuff, we would play one-shots of different games, and they were always, like, these really out-there, kind of, you know, outlandish, very, like, high comedy, you know, action-adventure stuff, you know, where we would have just, like, you know, crazy stuff, you know, somebody covering their sword blades with magic meat meat pate that makes enemies explode when you hit them with your sword, and all this sort of stuff. You know, a character who has that deformed upper lip that covers his eyes, that he has to like pull it down, and that's how he got the flaw of being blind without actually being blind, is that his upper lip was covering his eyes, and that sort of dumb stuff, you know. And after that, I went to art school. When junior high was over, I went to art school for 3 years. And in there, I stumbled across people who were also role players. But they were role players who had kind of come up with the hobby themselves. You know, I've heard a lot of people just, you know, like me, doing with the paper, that they kind of just stumble upon it without knowing that there is this real thing like role playing. And they didn't have any rules. They didn't have any die rolls. They would just have this world, have these side characters, have these player characters, and they would just role play, nothing but role play. And once I kind of got with them, I kind of realized that, okay, it's not just about, you know, rolling the dice and having, you know, statistics and all that, but there's a greater emphasis on like relating with the character you're playing, and really like thinking, would my character do this? How would my character react to this? And then playing that out, almost like playing a character on a stage or something. But that kind of formed my role-playing ideology a little bit, that you know, made me emphasize on role-playing a lot. And after that, after the art school was over, I had some of the friends that I came to know from the art school, and we would role play almost every weekend. And when we were role playing together, we kind of took that kind of stuff that we learned from those games when it comes to like the role play aspect of it and the character drama aspect of it, and really like getting into your character and all that part, plus the kind of mechanics and all that sort of stuff that the book teaches, and the die rolls and stuff. But since we were all comic book artists, I hate to call myself an artist in any way, but still, since we were all really into comics and writing comics and all that, we were very conscious about story structure, and we would play a lot of World of Darkness that would emphasize that this is a storytelling game and that sort of stuff. It's not the dungeon master anymore, it's the storyteller and that sort of stuff. So that really influenced our style as well, where we would almost have like this TV show season style of a campaign. Every time we would play role-playing games, it would always be like this. It had like a clear beginning and an end. The characters had story arcs. There was a lot of like drama. There was a lot of like planned stuff without being railroady, and all this sort of different stuff where you know, stuff was very much like planned beforehand, but it wasn't like players weren't clamped down and forced to follow a script or something. But you know, it's influenced the way I've role played for the longest time. Ever since then, that I make like these bullet points of what I want to have happen in the story, and those are easy to just erase and make new bullet points if the players stray far enough from what you originally planned for them to have happen in the story of the game. Now, once that group had like really settled down with me, that I would play with them every weekend, eventually they moved all the way to the other side of the country, you know, a 5 to 6 hour drive away. So after that, I had like a 2-year hiatus from role-playing, and I was really like, about that. You know, I tried to go into different groups. First of all, it was very hard to find groups, and when I went there, they would play in a completely different way than I like to play. You know, it was totally like thinking, in my eyes, it was like going to a movie club, like, let's go to this film club, and all they want to watch is like Transformers and Armageddon and all these type of shit movies, and I'm like, I was totally expecting us to watch some auteur style films and that sort of stuff, but you know, that's just an example. But after that 2 years, I had, within that time I started to make YouTube videos, and during that time I made a lot of contacts with different people, and through that I kind of got to know people who were really into the same games I was in, to the same style of role-playing that I was in, and we just hooked up. We were just, well, why don't we try this Skype playing thing? I had heard a lot of people talk about, playing through Skype and that sort of stuff. So we just tried it, and it worked out fine. It worked out great. And ever since like a year ago, I've been playing through Skype with different people from the YouTube RPG community, and it's been a blast. I couldn't hope for anything better. I'm sure if I would find a group now here, it would be nothing as good as the people who are like veterans of the hobby that I can find in the community. So yeah, the hobby with me is flourishing and thriving in a very positive way, and I'm really glad about that. So that's basically how I got into role-playing, and my kind of, storied arc to this day in how I've been role-playing.